Hello, welcome to Survey Instrument Design Basics, an online module for medical and health science faculty members interested in developing survey instruments. My name is Ellen Goldman, and it is my pleasure to guide you through this overview. In this session, we will provide a general overview of the purposes and types of survey research and discuss issues related to survey instrument design. By the end of the session, you should be able to identify the general issues involved in survey research and the elements involved in designing a good survey instrument. Surveys are a very popular method of research due to their relative ease and low cost to administer. With formatting and data collection tools like SurveyMonkey and REDCap, and numerous listservs of student, professional, and special interest groups, it can be fairly simple to develop and execute a survey. These features may also cause an overuse of surveys. Thus, it is worthwhile to consider what the purposes of survey research are. There are three main purposes cutting across most of survey research. The first is to provide a description about some phenomenon, the distribution of certain characteristics, traits, or attitudes that exist. The demographic distributions reported by the U.S. Bureau of the Census are examples of this, as is the Labor Department Unemployment Report, or the various polls on expected voter behavior or anticipated consumer purchases. These studies are concerned with the frequency of the traits or behaviors, not why they exist. In medical education, topics of descriptive studies could include students' amount of study time, faculty attendance at external CME programs, or curriculum components across different programs and institutions. Studies that aim to explain why certain preferences, attitudes, or behaviors exist are a second purpose of survey research. These studies usually require examination of multiple variables. In studies of voter behavior, for example, such variables could include age, sex, race, religion, and region of the country. In an investigation of student study habits, variables might include their level of interest in the topic, performance on past examinations, length of time before the next exam, and other factors. Finally, surveys can also be used to test ideas under development, for example, to explore the interest in certain curricular electives or to gain feedback regarding proposed schedule changes. The three purposes of survey research are not mutually exclusive. Most surveys have more than one purpose, but these three are useful as an organizing principle in survey design, as they require the researcher to think about what they really want to know in relative proportion to other purposes. Thinking about the purpose of the survey leads naturally to considering a number of other factors that will determine the overall survey research study design. First, who or what is being studied. This is called the unit of analysis. Usually the unit of analysis for a survey is a person, but it could be a family, an education program, or a healthcare organization. It is important to identify the unit of analysis up front, as it influences the sample design and the data collection methods. Second, is it feasible to survey the entire population, or will a sample be needed? There are many different kinds of sample designs, as we will see in a moment. Third, what data needs to be collected to answer your questions? Fourth, will the data need to be collected at more than one point in time? If multiple points of data collection are required, one of three types of longitudinal surveys are called for, depending on what is of interest. If tracking changes over time, a trend study can be developed, involving different samples of individuals at different points in time, such as samples of voters during an election campaign. A more specific study, a cohort study, would focus on the same specific population each time a survey is administered, such as women voters. But if why change occurs is of interest, a panel study is indicated, involving the collection of data from the same people over time. This allows for the identification of which members of the panel may be switching their behaviors and why. Panel studies do suffer from attrition over time, and the analysis of the data is complicated across multiple changes in behaviors, so these studies are best suited for phenomena that are relatively short in duration. Before undertaking any form of a longitudinal study, it is useful to consider if anyone has studied the unit previously, and if repeating their survey with permission at another point in time will provide the information you are seeking. If it is not possible to survey all members of the group for reasons such as time or cost, sampling is called for. There are many types of sample designs. The common ones are listed on the left-hand column. They vary in terms of how the sample is defined, selected, and how the data is analyzed, and they require consideration of numerous factors too complicated to explore in this module. Readers interested in the different sample designs should consult one of the texts listed on the last slide as a reference for this module. What we will discuss are general concerns when samples are used, the right-hand side of the slide. Foremost amongst these concerns is what size a sample is required. This in turn depends on the type of study design, the number of variables under consideration, and the researcher's desired level of confidence in the results. Formulas and statistical tables for determining sample size can be found in the texts listed as references for this module. A related concern with the sample is ensuring that each member of the relevant group has the same chance of being selected to take the survey. Again, the type of study design listed on the left will have implications for how representativeness is ensured. Other more logistical concerns to consider involve the methods of recruiting subjects and administering the survey. Standards used in the field or the specialty are useful starting points for deciding how to recruit subjects, but the main questions to think about are, why would someone be motivated to take this survey, particularly if they receive multiple surveys on a regular basis? Being a member of this particular group or being referred by someone of importance may be a motivator, as well as having access to the results. Likewise, thought needs to go into the manner in which the survey should be administered. Here there are likely to be trade-offs between cost, time, and results. For example, web surveys are quick and easy, but also plentiful, so lower response rates may result. Phone surveys are time-consuming to administer, but may yield more informed results because they allow time to probe responses. All of the foregoing choices of survey purpose, study design, and sampling concerns also have implications on the nature and length of the survey. But regardless of those choices, there are a number of things to consider in constructing the actual survey instrument. The first set of suggestions concerns the overall design of the instrument. Most surveys, particularly those administered online, are completed quickly and as such should provide instructions in simple language with clear direction. Even if there is a cover note, the purpose of the survey should be repeated so the respondent is clear. Fast reading by survey respondents of lengthy questions or complicated directions can easily lead to misinterpretation. Similarly, a dense appearance of questions can cause misreading, so white space or open page space should be maximized. Questions with choices should use open boxes to be checked rather than blanks to be filled in where statements may run over into responses to other questions. The use of drop-down sections and selections solves a number of these issues. Often surveys include the collection of demographic data of the respondents. If the survey is written or online, these questions should be placed at the end, as their presence up front has been shown to cause respondents to lose interest and stop the survey, or even to question their recruitment or the purpose of the survey. However, when orally administering a survey, demographic questions should be placed up front, as they provide a means of establishing rapport with the respondents. A second set of suggestions concerns the actual questions. Similar to the instructions, simple statements should be used that are precise about what is being asked. For example, how many times in the last year have you talked with a doctor about your health is not a good question. Precision is lacking. There are too many terms subject to interpretation. Does talked with imply an office visit? Does email count? A phone call? What constitutes a doctor? Only someone with an MD? If you go to an office and a nurse provides an inoculation for you, does that count? A better approach would be to tell the respondents you're going to ask questions about getting advice about their health, and then list the ways that this could occur, asking for frequency to be given. Probably the single biggest problem in question design is double-barreled questions, those that ask two things at the same time, such as, do you take your prescribed medications and follow your physician's suggested diet? Respondents could do one and not the other. Some who do that may check yes, others no, and the decision will be made inconsistently by different respondents. Thus, questions should avoid the word "and." Another common issue with question writing is the use of negatives, such as the question, which of the following are factors that would cause you not to follow doctor's orders? Reading quickly, the "not" could be missed. Survey questions should all be positively phrased. Which of the following do you practice? Questions can be open-ended, multiple choice, rankings, or ratings. The attached diagram from SurveyMonkey provides a decision chart to determine what type of question structure is best. A second concern in survey instrument design is the type of measurement offered. Thought needs to be given to what the measurement is intended to explain. The four most common measures are shown on the slide. Nominal measures are mutually exclusive, for example, one's chosen field of specialty. There may not be any relationship amongst the options provided. Ordinal measures reflect a rank order, but the distance between the selections are not necessarily equal. For example, of 5 choices in a forced ranking, a respondent could not at all care for numbers 4 and 5, but because they were requested to rank them, might give a different opinion to the person looking at the data. Interval measures do indicate equal distances between choices, such as degrees of temperature. Finally, intensity indexes, such as the commonly used Likert scale, afford indications of degree of agreement, such as the exemplar provided, which goes from strongly disagree to agree to strongly agree. When used in surveys, questions using Likert scales should all show the same direction, usually least to most, so as not to confuse respondents. Likert advocated for a 4-scale index to force respondents to make a choice, indicating that they either agree or disagree. Some researchers have added many more options, such as somewhat disagree and somewhat agree. Care should be taken in doing this, as these are essentially the same response, similar to "it's partly cloudy today" or "it's partly sunny today." A final few tips are offered to those constructing survey instruments. First, always pre-test the instrument on a representative set of respondents for feedback on the clarity of the questions and to see if the responses are what you really want to know. Investigate questions that have been left blank or where multiple or qualified responses are provided. Try to understand why the questions were left blank or why there are multiple responses. These are indications that the question may not be clear to the reader. A common question of researchers is, when is it appropriate to use an instrument developed by someone else? A source such as Mental Measurements in the Library online database should be consulted to ensure that the theoretical basis of the instrument's development is consistent with your use of it, and the situations in which it has been used are consistent with your proposed use. This can be found in the description of the research data on the instrument. If these considerations support your study, make sure that any required permission to use the instrument is granted to you in writing. The rationale for using the instrument and the required permission should be included in any manuscripts or presentations of your study. Finally, I'd like to end with a few comments about response rates, as these are often misunderstood. If a survey is administered to the entire population, in other words, a sample is not used, the general rule of thumb has been that a 70% response rate is highly desirable, but 50% is sufficient. This is overly simplistic because the population as a whole could be rather small. On the other hand, a low response rate, let's say less than 50%, could be fine if the population is large, as long as there is no reason to believe that those who did respond represented a part of the population indicating a bias of some sort. The question of bias is more important than the numbers of respondents. If a sample is used, the desired level of confidence for the particular type of survey design determines the number of responses needed. Generally, textbooks indicate that 150 to 200 responses provide an acceptable range of sampling error. Increases beyond 200 provide small gains in confidence levels. For those wanting more details on the topics that have been covered, as well as specifics of particular types of survey instruments, please consult the textbooks shown on this page. Thank you.